Ladies and gentlemen, Sam Rosenberg from Impact Personal Protection. He is a nationally recognized leader in personal security, defense, firearms, and critical incident response training. The reason he is here is what the world has been listening to: CBS Radio News, News Radio 1020, KDKA. Republican House Whip Steve Scalise was shot this morning in Virginia at a congressional baseball practice. He's in surgery and in stable condition. The shooting appears to be a deliberate attack. This according to congressional and law enforcement sources. President Trump says the shooter has died from his injuries. Law enforcement has identified the shooter as James Hodgkinson, 66, from Illinois. 5 people transported from the scene by medics. All of this according to the police. So, Sam, once again, we are seeing that violence never rests and it spares no one. Shocking story, shocking details as it continues to develop. One thing everybody keeps talking about, a deliberate attack. It's too early to say whether or not it was an act of terrorism or certain members of Congress were targeted, but one thing we do know, it was a chaotic scene in the nation's capital.
Absolutely. You know, the thing about it, Rob, I always say you don't have to differentiate, really. I mean, mass killing, whether it's in a school, at a workplace, on a baseball field, or, you know, in Manchester, England, you know, it all is the same basic dynamic. It's all terrorism in one form or another. The MO is the same. The way we would identify these guys is the same. The way you have to stop them is the same. The only real differentiator is ideology. You know, one person's politically or religiously motivated, and another one's personally motivated. In this case, it seems like it was politically motivated.
The thing that I took away from this, and I've been watching CNN and doing as much due diligence online, trying to keep up with this as well on the smartphone, it really, if people and members of Congress are in danger and something like this can happen, the average citizen must realize that they too are just as, if not more so, vulnerable. No one really is safe in our society today from these acts of, as you call them, terrorism.
Yeah, I mean, we have to understand that we're living in a new reality here. You know, it's not like life was 30 years ago. You know, this type of phenomena of mass homicide has been on the move and increasing in scope since about 1989, and it's a relatively new phenomena from the standpoint of, you know, world history. You know, we've always had Genghis Khans and Hitlers and you know, a certain degree of international terrorism, but this type of domestic terrorism and type of mass killing that is just becoming the norm is something that we have to understand and be able to respond to. And at the end of the day, Rob, it's like we've always preached. You know, it's good to have a lifeguard, you know, but it's better to know how to swim. I mean, thank God Scalise had his protection in detail with him, because the response time was immediate. But, you know, the average person does not have a protection detail rolling around with them. They have to learn how to protect themselves. People have to take that responsibility and understand that you just can't throw your hands up in the air and say, well, what the hell is anyone supposed to do in this type of situation? The reality is, you have to understand how to recognize danger and how to protect yourself no matter what the situation is. You know, what's incumbent on us as a society is to recognize that it's not enough to just say, you know, hey, if you see something, say something. We've got to teach people what to look for. At the exact same time, we have to teach people how to respond if they come face-to-face with an armed intruder. And that's what we specialize in, as you know, Rob. We've been leading the charge on this for the last 14 years. You know, before anyone even wanted to touch training organizations or schools or teachers, you know, how to deal with active shooters, they didn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. We had been out there teaching these things and refining our methodologies, and they're available to the public. I mean, people need to take this information and learn these life lessons.
All right, in closing, Sam Rosenberg, who will be with me when I'm in for Mike Pintek this Friday right after CBS News at 1 o'clock, and we'll have much more on this story by then, and I hope that you will stay with News Radio 1020 KDK throughout the day and night to get the latest along with CBS Radio News. They, you know, talked about they were at a baseball field. This charity baseball game will go on as planned, but an open field, obviously, people running for cover, talking about a dugout. Just kind of explain to the audience, when you're in a situation that it is a wide open space, what do you do?
Well, you know, wide open spaces provide both a disadvantage and an advantage. The disadvantage is there's not a lot of cover, right? And cover being things that can stop bullets from hitting you. But at the same time, most bad guys can't shoot. So the reality is you have the opportunity to open up distance between you and that bad guy, and that distance works to your favor. So if you're in a situation where you have, you know, you're on the field and someone starts shooting at you, you know, the reality is your first objective should be to move in the opposite direction and get as much distance as you can. If you think the zigzag, fine, make it harder to hit you. But the reality is distance by itself makes it very challenging for people to make a successful shot. When you're in the enclosed space of a dugout or something like that, it's the same as being in an office building, Rob. There's probably nowhere to hide, and there's very little opportunity to run. So, the whole run, hide, fight mantra breaks down to one very simple equation. If you're on the X, you've got to close with and deal with that threat. And you have to know how to do that in order to be willing and able to do it.
Our friend Lou Gentile, many years member of the state police, now the brand CSI investigators, teaching people to properly use a firearm. And John Hudson, former Secret Service agent, talked to both of them a lot about this. He, of course, from Security Consulting Solutions, Inc., he's the man with the eye in the sky cameras. You have to be a big proponent of both of those. I mean, in these troubling times that we live in, Sam.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that there's a time and a place for everything. I think, surveillance technology, first and foremost, surveillance technology will not and cannot stop a violent attack. It provides evidence. So, the reliance on technology and the over-reliance on technology to assume that we are therefore safe because people are observing is a fallacy. Is it an important part of the continuum? Yes, it is. Learning how to shoot a gun, however, as you know, at Impact Academy, and we've been doing this full spectrum training for 14 years now, Rob. All right, we're in the business of teaching people how to protect themselves from an unarmed capacity, how to use defensive firearms, and how to respond to critical incidents. In fact, we're in the process right now of putting together the first full-scale indoor training facility in the Pittsburgh area, the first state-of-the-art facility that is going to absolutely change the playing field here for the citizens, building a safer community. But I'm a big proponent of it. I do not think that everyone should carry a gun, but I think those who are willing and able to receive the training necessary to do so responsibly and who have that psychology that's capable of responding, the citizens themselves become the final line of defense. And it's the human factor, not the technological factor, that makes the difference.
You're amazing. I thank you for your time. I know it's a busy day, and because of this developing story, you were the first person I thought of calling it, and looking forward to our talk on Friday when I'm in for Mike Pintek at 1 o'clock on KDK. Sam, have a good afternoon.
You too, Rob. Thank you, sir.
We'll be back shortly with some sports from the Pratt Pack Gym. Good afternoon.